With video game consoles and computers becoming more powerful as generations progress, video games have been able to exponentially increase in size. We first saw this with the addition of 3D graphics, adding more features, customization, and more. Like, how the hell did this turn into this? But most recently, we've seen game maps expand like crazy. When 20 years ago, maps in games would be relatively small and have to load in specific assets, now we have the power to create entire worlds and load in pretty much everything through the power of modern technology. This has caused video game worlds and immersion to become insanely expansive. In the past, aka the Dark Ages, video game worlds were made through illusion, characters, and set pieces, but now we have all that plus a literal world to explore. This has opened up a relatively new subgenre of video games, being the open world video game. I hate these. Okay, now that I have your attention, I don't hate open world games. I think that many open world games that I have played are amazing, and even some that I haven't played I have so much respect for. But I think this genre is becoming more and more stale with a lack of innovation, attempting to sell you on the fact that it's an open world game and not much else. As well as the general gameplay loop of many of these games is kind of being the same thing over and over and over again. Of course, both of those claims are exaggerations to a degree, but I still think there's a discussion to be made about open world games and the problems with them. Over the last few years, many popular gaming franchises have broken into the open world sphere, but there are many series that started with an open world, like Red Dead Redemption, The Witcher, but the most revolutionary being Minecraft. Okay, maybe not revolutionary. Minecraft is the most popular and best-selling video game of all time, but I wouldn't say it's very revolutionary gameplay-wise. In its art style and idea of basically being virtual Legos, of course it is. The developers had a very small budget in the beginning, so they just modeled cubes for everything, and it was incredibly easy to model and build stuff with. Which then evolved into how it is today with genuinely stunning mountain ranges and caves that are just made out of cubes. But gameplay-wise, eh. The building is fun, but I think Minecraft as a game is incredibly still, and the devs keep getting people to come back with a small update about once a year. Which I get that for like multiplayer, but really who goes back and plays Minecraft every new update? Especially now where the updates are incredibly basic with very few additions. But Minecraft isn't popular for its gameplay, it's popular for its availability and relevance in the cultural zeitgeist. If something has a screen, there's probably an edition of Minecraft available on it. I'm just waiting for Minecraft Pregnancy Test Edition. You have heard of Minecraft, there's no way around it, and chances are you even own it. That's because for a while every rich white guy with too much free time on his hands did a Let's Play series on this game and introduced it to millions of viewers. Which then caused the game to gradually get a crazy modding and multiplayer scene to the point where most people don't even play Minecraft for Minecraft at this point. You have mods that turn the game into a Skyrim Dark Souls type game, multiplayer games, mega servers with bigger servers than pretty much any other game ever. So the fact that Minecraft, a relatively repetitive and stale game, has become larger than anyone can even imagine through community support is super cool. And while I get in and out of the game, it's still a fun game to hop on with some friends, especially since everyone in the world has the game already. But on the other side of open world games, you have a game like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is one of the greatest games of all time, but I cannot go back to this game for the life of me. You see, I beat the game and it's so much fun the first time, but I think the majority of the fun from this game comes from the sense of discovery, exploring the unknown world and becoming more knowledgeable in Hyrule. But on a repeat playthrough where you already know most of the discoveries and what you can and cannot do, everything just feels a little rudimentary. But you may think, oh, well the game must have a good modding community, right? I would say yes, but I get shot on sight. It has a good modding community with a lot of cool stuff, but also this game is only on the Nintendo Switch where if you mod it and do one wrong thing, your console will. Damn it. And if you do end up modding the game and streaming it anywhere, get ready for a cease and desist on your front door because Nintendo hates you modding their games. So much so that they sued a creator named Point Crow for modding the game and forced him to delist his mod that he had many talented developers work so much time on. Why do we still support this company? I think Breath of the Wild has so much potential for a crazy modding scene with some awesome creations made by some extremely talented people, but Nintendo's way too overprotective of their IPs and ruins it for everyone. So while Breath of the Wild is a really good game, I think it's really brought down by its lack of fun/magic on a repeat playthrough, and Nintendo's unwillingness to allow any community support to the game without having a gun to your head the next day. But to be fair, Nintendo did release a sequel to this game 6 years later, being The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This game is literally just Breath of the Wild again, there's no way around it. Breath of the Wild had a very simple gameplay plan where you do the tutorial island, then once you beat it, you have access to the open world where you're free to explore and beat the 4 divine beasts. And once you've done all that, then you can get the Master Sword, beat the final boss, and beat the game. Tears of the Kingdom has you do the tutorial Sky Island, get access to the open world, do 4 dungeons, get the Master Sword, and beat the final boss. It's literally the exact same setup. I guess don't fix what isn't broken, but also this thing is $70, so. And honestly, I don't even think Tears of the Kingdom does it as well as its predecessor. For one, each dungeon mission is less stylized as Breath of the Wild, as in one, they had these big mechanical things that you had to get into. In Tears of the Kingdom, a lot of it is just a dark puzzle with a puzzle and a boss. No style at all. And the bosses are significantly worse in almost every way compared to Breath of the Wild, which were already one of the weakest aspects of that game. And since Tears of the Kingdom is pretty much just Breath of the Wild remixed, it uses the same map, has all the same items and weapons to discover, with very little new ones thrown in. Same with the enemies, random encounters, and pretty much everything else. The game does have its own expansions to the map, however I feel like they were underwhelming from what they tried to hype them up to be. The main new addition to the map is the Sky Islands, which is where you start out in the game. I really like the tutorial island in this game, more than Breath of the Wild's honestly. However, what if I told you that this is the most interesting Sky Island in the game? By far. The rest you can find are a fraction of the size and have almost nothing of note. I think stylistically they're really cool, but once I had explored a few and found almost nothing, I felt no reason to explore any more outside of the ones required in the story. This game also adds caves, which can be found around the map, and I actually really enjoyed these and found myself exploring almost every one I saw. While they're mostly pretty small in size, I still liked exploring these and felt like the reward for doing so was for the most part worth it. And the last new addition to the map was the depths, which are pretty much a complete secret before the game's release. And do I like them? Yeah, they're okay. They're actually surprisingly large and have a ton of cool enemies and items scattered around it, but a lot of it is also empty space and feels a lot more like filler. The challenge from these comes from the fact that you can't see shit until you illuminate the trees surrounding the place. But I don't know, man, I found myself kind of getting in and out of these places and not putting too much effort into exploring too much of it because a lot of it just felt empty once you had it all illuminated. Plus, you die. Over and over again. It gets really annoying. They also have a neat building mechanic in this game. I built some cool planes and cars, but I've seen some people do some crazy things with this. I'm kind of a brainlet though, so a lot of it just flew over my head. If you feel like I'm f***ing way too much about this game, you'd be right. I did enjoy my time with this game, I really did, but compared to Breath of the Wild, this game just feels like a cheap upgrade. And for being kind of a cheap upgrade, this is also the only Nintendo game to have a raised ESRB price of $70 compared to the Switch's usual $60, so I feel like some of the b***ing is warranted. Another open world series I have a lot of experience with is the Marvel Spider-Man series. I love these games way too much. While most Spider-Man games are somewhat open world, due to hardware limitations and stretch from the developers, they never felt as fleshed out as they could, which is why the Spider-Man game license was taken from these developers and given to Insomniac Games. Insomniac Games is known for making the Ratchet & Clank series, however they were given the Spider-Man license due to their game Sunset Overdrive. Sunset Overdrive was praised for its fast and lively traversal system, which made Insomniac Games a huge contender for the Spider-Man game license so they could have a fun swinging mechanic, and then they got it. And when the game was first shown off, we finally got to see what a fully realized Spider-Man game could look like without the devs having a strict time limit and or movie tie-in. And the game looked amazing, like the Amazing Spider-Man. That was Patrick. In this game, you can explore pretty much the entirety of Manhattan, New York, like many other Spider-Man games, but oh my god, this game is so detailed and lively. And when I beat the full story, I did literally every possible side mission and fully 100% of the game, and still found myself launching the game to explore New York and fight crime. Because New York has so much charm in this game, there are so many secrets to discover around the city by just interacting with pedestrians. And even the story was done incredibly well, which is a hard feat for many open world games. While not going for the open world type of storytelling a game like Breath of the Wild or God of War does, it's still really fun. I would really like to save the story of this game for the future, but overall the world of this game is amazing. 2 years later in 2020, we got a short spin-off of Marvel's Spider-Man being Spider-Man Miles Morales, showing the character Miles Morales' upbringing as Spider-Man. And while it reuses the same map and traversal system, so there isn't much new to talk about, I still find this game to be amazing as well. But I felt like even though it was never advertised to be, there are hardly any new things separating this game from the original game. And this problem for me was brought up again with the full sequel of the original Marvel Spider-Man 2 coming out this October. I was so happy when I finally got to boot up this game and then I realized, it's f***ing Spider-Man again. This game is amazing, genuinely stunning. I don't think I've ever been more happy playing a video game ever, but this game is just the same spin as Marvel's Spider-Man and Miles Morales. Spin? See what I did there? That was bad. That was an awful joke. I understand that it's a sequel and it never had the goal nor was advertised as reinventing the franchise, but again like Tears of the Kingdom, I felt a little bit cheated by this game since it used the exact same gameplay structure as both of the games that came before it. You swing to a location and progress the story, you either do a stealth mission, fight enemies, or some variety of that, and just do that the entire game. It's really fun, I find myself exploring the city and fighting crimes for hours, so clearly I like the gameplay, but I feel like the lack of new additions to the gameplay kind of brings up my main problem with open world games. It's incredibly hard to innovate with an open world game, and a lot of times you have nothing left to do other than just retread the same waters with some slight changes. Since a lot of the time these games have so much to do, it's hard to innovate with completely new ideas. Again, for the most part the gameplay is amazing, hence why the games I use as examples here are so successful and well liked. But it's hard to not feel a little bit disappointed when you've been so excited for a game to come out just to realize it's pretty much the exact same thing as before. I see many people say that this is because games have already peaked, and by releasing more sequels in the same vein is just doing the exact same thing again, which is true. But another problem is that I don't even know if I want a complete shakeup on the gameplay for each new entry in a game. Like, what if I get my wish, and Marvel Spider-Man 3 is a fully new game with a fully new map, traversal mechanic, fighting system, everything is new. Would I even like the game at that point, since what made me fall in love with the previous entries in the series would just be completely gone? And at what point does a game turn from a sequel to pretty much a brand new type of game? Do you see my point? Open world games are incredibly hard to expand upon and pretty much have to live by plot alone at this point, which is cool, but it kind of defeats the entire purpose of making an open world game. At that point, just make an RPG. But a game like Tears of the Kingdom, which hardly has a plot, expects us to love it for the gameplay alone, which is just the exact same thing as its predecessor. I'm not done bitching! Okay, so in conclusion of this mess of a rant, open world games, while being amazing, are incredibly hard to innovate upon and are just being pumped out like crazy now. They're starting to feel a little bit repetitive. Incredibly repetitive. Okay, now I'm done about Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, even a game like GTA, which are all great, all feel relatively the same, only change out by the story and map each time. So what do I propose considering a lot of the points I brought up here?
I just like Donkey Kong, man. Leave me alone.
Maybe I should stop talking.